I'm Diana, and this is the story of how my world was torn apart by betrayal, how I sank into a darkness so heavy I thought it would bury me, and how I fought my way out to deliver justice so sharp and silent it felt like poetry. It's a story of heartbreak, rage, and a woman who refused to let those who broke her define her. It's long, raw, and real because every moment shaped me into who I am. If you're here, settle in, it's a journey, and I'm telling it all. A chemist. I was 32, living in a small apartment in Chicago's Lincoln Park, where Lake Michigan's silvery edge sparkled from my balcony, a quiet promise of beauty in a chaotic world. My job as a marketing manager at Pinnacle Enterprises, a tech firm with a gleaming office in the Loop, was my pride, demanding. Yes, but a place where I'd carved out a name for myself. My boyfriend, Ethan, was my haven, 3 years together, his warm laugh and steady hands anchoring me. A freelance graphic designer, he was always chasing deadlines, but his passion was contagious, his hazel eyes lighting up when he sketched. My best friend, Claire, was the sister I chose, always there with a bottle of Pinu and a biting quip to make me laugh. Then there was my boss, Richard Caldwell, Pinnacle's CEO, a man whose charisma was a weapon, his smile too sharp, his gaze lingering on the women in the office like a predator sizing up prey. The cracks came quietly like whispers. You ignore until there screams. Ethan started staying out late, blaming client meetings that ran past midnight. His phone was always face down, and he'd snatch it away with a nervous chuckle if I got too close. I told myself it was stress. Love makes you blind, doesn't it at work, Richard? As attention was becoming a problem. He'd call me into his office for strategy sessions that veered into questions about my dating life. You're too pretty to be tied down, Diana, he'd say, leaning across his desk, his cologne sharp enough to choke me. I'd force a smile, deflect, and leave, but each encounter left a sour knot in my gut, a feeling I was walking a tightrope over something dangerous. Then came the night that shattered everything. It was a warm Friday in May, Chicago buzzing with spring's energy. Ethan had canceled our dinner plans at our favorite Italian spot, citing another client emergency. I decided to surprise him with takeout, picturing us laughing over fettuccine in his cluttered apartment. I used my key, the scent of garlic bread warm in my hands. The lights were low, and there he was on the couch, tangled with Claire. Her dark hair spilled over his chest, his hands tracing her back in a way that screamed intimacy, not accident. The takeout bag slipped from my fingers, marinara splattering across the hardwood like my broken trust. Ethan's eyes met mine, wide with panic. Diana, it's not, he stammered, but Claire's silence was louder, her face flushed, her eyes glued to the floor. I didn't scream, I didn't cry. I turned and walked out, my legs moving. On instinct. The world tilting around me. The drive home was a blur, the city's neon lights smearing through tears. I refused to let fall. Ethan and Claire, my partner, my best friend, had been sneaking around for months, they later admitted. It wasn't just the affair. Monthing. Myth, ithapse, thing. It was the betrayal of everything I'd given them. My love, my trust, my deepest secrets. That night I sat on my couch, the lake outside my window a cruel mirror of my calm exterior. Inside I was unraveling every memory of Ethan's touch, Claire's laughter, now a lie. I felt small, stupid, like the kind of woman who'd let herself be played for a fool. Work was supposed to be my escape, but Pinnacle was a snake pit. Richard's behavior had escalated. He'd linger by my desk, his hand brushing my shoulder as he reviewed my work. In meetings, his praise felt like a leash, his words dripping with possession. One evening, he called me into his office after hours. The city glittered through the windows, but the air felt heavy. He poured himself a whiskey, offered me one. I declined, my heart pounding. You're one of our best, Diana, he said, his voice low, but you need to play the game. Dinner tomorrow night. Just us. His hand grazed mine as he handed me a file, lingering too long. I froze, my skin crawling, and mumbled an excuse to leave. The encounter left me shaken, my workplace no longer a refuge but a trap. I started noticing patterns. Richard's favorites were always young women, promoted if they played along, sidelined if they didn't. I heard whispers about Sarah, a colleague who'd quit after a private meeting with Richard at a hotel, promised a raise only to be humiliated when she refused. Then I found the emails working late on a presentation. I accessed Richard's shared drive and saw a folder labeled personal. Curiosity won, and what I found made my stomach churn. Dozens of messages between Richard and Mia, a junior employee. They were explicit, manipulative, Richard promising her a promotion if she kept him happy. He was married, his wife Ellen, a beloved figure at company events, her smile warm and unaware. Worse, his emails showed Richard funneling company funds into consulting fees to cover hotel bills and gifts for Mia. It was a betrayal of his wife, his employees, and the company I'd poured my heart into. I was drowning. Ethan and Claire had gutted my personal life. And Richard. Actions turned work into a nightmare. I stopped sleeping, my apartment a prison of memories. Ethan's hoodie in my closet. Claire handwritten birthday cards on my shelf. I'd stare in the mirror, seeing a stranger. Hollow cheeks, red-rimmed eyes, a woman who'd lost her spark. I tried to push through to lose myself in work, but Richard's presence was suffocating. I started documenting everything, his comments, his touches, the emails I'd found, because it was the only way to feel some control. But control wasn't enough. I was angry not just at them, but at myself for trusting them, for letting them make me feel worthless. One night on my balcony, the lake stretching dark and endless below, I broke. I cried until my throat was raw, the weight of betrayal crushing me. But as the tears dried, something shifted. I was done being their victim. Ethan, Claire, Richard, they didn't get to win. I deserved justice, not the loud, messy kind, but something precise, legal, and devastating. I wasn't just Diana anymore, I was a force, and I was going to make them pay. The plan took weeks to form, my mind a chessboard where every move was calculated. For Ethan and Claire, it had to be personal, a mirror to their betrayal. For Richard, it had to be professional, a dismantling of his power. I'd stay within the law, untouchable. Here's how it unfolded. Ethan and Claire thought they could slink away. Their apologies enough to erase their lies. They were wrong. Ethan was obsessed with his reputation in Chicago's art scene, where he was the charming good guy designer. Claire lived for her Instagram persona, a curated lie of yoga retreats and positivity. I decided to hit them where it hurt, their public image. I created an anonymous blog, Chicago Secrets, styled like a literary gossip column, all sharp prose and veiled truths. I wrote a story about Evan and Clara, a couple who betrayed a loyal friend with a secret affair. The details were vague but unmistakable. The coffee shop where Evan worked, the yoga retreats Clara loved. I included snippets of their real texts, anonymized to avoid legal trouble but damning in their tone. Flirty, secretive, cruel. I posted it on local forums and X, and it spread like wildfire. The fallout was swift. Ethan's clients dropped him, unwilling to work with someone whose drama was now public. His good guy image shattered, whispers following him to every gallery opening. Claire's follower count plummeted, her comments flooded with questions about Clara. They didn't know it was me, but I watched from my laptop, each notification a spark of satisfaction. It wasn't about destruction, it was about truth. They'd built their lives on lies, and I let the world see them for what they were. Richard was trickier. He was powerful, connected, and untouchable, or so he thought. Exposing him meant risking my job, my safety, but I wasn't alone. I reached out to Sarah and Mia, meeting them at a quiet cafe far from Pinnacle's reach. Over coffee, they shared their stories, Sarah's humiliation, Maya's coercion. We became a trio, bound by anger and resolve. They gave me more evidence, screenshots, a voicemail of Richard's oily voice promising Mia a bonus for extra time. It was enough to ruin him, but I needed a stage. Pinnacle's annual charity gala was perfect. Held in a glittering downtown ballroom. It drew board members, investors, and the press. Ellen always gave a speech about Pinnacle's family values, her voice warm with pride. I created an anonymous whistleblower account and compiled a dossier, emails, screenshots, financial records, all redacted to protect Sarah and Mia. I sent it to Laura Bennett, a journalist known for exposing corrupt executives. I included a tip. The gala was the night to watch. Laura verified every detail, promising to publish at the right moment. The gala was a spectacle, chandeliers casting light over tuxedos and gowns. I wore a simple black dress, my heart racing as I blended into the crowd. Richard was in his element, shaking hands, his laugh too loud. Ellen took the stage, her speech full of hope. Then it happened. Phones buzzed, whispers spreading. Laura's article dropped, Pinnacle's dark secret. CEO's misconduct exposed. It detailed Richard's affairs, harassment, and misuse of funds backed by ironclad evidence. Helen's face paled as she glanced at her phone. Richard's smile faltered, his eyes darting to the board members huddling in a corner. I sipped my wine, my pulse steady. Watching his world collapse by morning, Richard was suspended. The board launched an investigation, and the evidence was overwhelming. He was fired within weeks, his reputation in tatters. Ellen filed for divorce, and Pinnacle's stock dipped, but the company survived under new leadership. Sarah and Mia found peace, their voices finally heard. I'd done it not with violence but with truth, sharp and unrelenting. The aftermath was quiet. I stood on my balcony, the lake reflecting the city's glow. Ethan and Claire were shadows of themselves, their lies exposed. Richard was gone, his power stripped away. I hadn't broken a law, hadn't raised my voice. My revenge was a scalpel, not a sledgehammer. And it felt good, but it wasn't just about justice. It was about reclaiming myself. I started therapy with Jer Patel, a quiet woman who let me cry and rage without judgment. I took a new job at a small firm where my boss, Rachel, valued my work, not my compliance. I rebuilt my life, learning to trust again, not blindly, but with eyes wide open. But let's go deeper, because this isn't just about the plan, it's about the weight of every moment. The way betrayal seeps into your soul. When I saw Ethan and Claire, the image burned into me, her hair tangled in his fingers, his lips on her neck. I drove home shaking, the city a blur of neon and shadow. I kept replaying every moment, Claire's hugs, Ethan's promises of a future together. They were lies, every one, and I'd believed them. I didn't sleep for days, the lake outside my window mocking me with its calm, while I was screaming inside. I wanted to hate them, but it was grief, raw and jagged, for the life I'd lost. At work, Richard's presence was a violation. I'd feel his eyes in meetings, his voice lingering on my name. After the whiskey incident, I avoided his office, but he'd find me by the coffee machine in the elevator. "You're tense, Diana," he'd say, his hand brushing my arm. I'd nod and slip away, but each encounter left a mark. Finding those emails was a turning point. I was shaking as I read them. Mia's replies full of fear, Richard's words dripping with entitlement. I printed them, hid them in a locked drawer, and started planning. I wasn't just angry, I was resolute. Planning was my lifeline. I'd sit at my kitchen table, the city humming outside, mapping every detail. For Ethan and Claire, I studied their lives like a detective. Ethan's portfolio was online, his client list public. I knew his favorite galleries, his key contacts. Claire's Instagram was a facade, yoga retreats, coffee dates, but her DMs hacked by a friend who owed me a favor showed her panic as the affair continued. I wrote the blog post with care, every word a needle. I tested it on a burner laptop, posted it at 2 a.m., and watched it spread. The first comment came from an artist Ethan knew. "Is this who I think it is?" By noon, it was everywhere. Richard's takedown needed finesse. Sarah and Mia were scared, but over coffee they opened up. Sarah's hands shook as she showed me texts from Richard, promising a promotion for playing nice. Mia's voicemail was worse, his voice smooth, predatory. We compiled the dossier, redacting names, ensuring nothing could trace back. I chose Laura Bennett for her reputation, sending the dossier from a burner email. The gala was the final piece, Ellen's speech, the perfect moment for the truth to land. At the gala, I was a ghost in my black dress, moving unnoticed. Richard's laugh was too loud, his confidence a mask. When the article dropped, I watched the room shift, the buzz of phones, Ellen's faltering voice, Richard's frozen smile. I slipped out before the chaos peaked, reading the article at home, Laura's words cutting through his lies. The comments were a storm, investors furious, employees vindicated. I poured a glass of wine, the lake outside calm for the first time in months. The aftermath wasn't all triumph. I still woke up with Ethan's betrayal replaying, or the memory of Richard's hand on mine. Therapy with Betrayal helped, teaching me to trust myself first. My new job was a fresh start, a firm where Rachel valued my ideas. I made new friends, cautious but open, and started to feel like Diana again, stronger, wiser. The pain didn't vanish overnight. Some mornings I'd wake with a heaviness in my chest, the ghost of Ethan's smile or Claire laugh haunting me. I'd walk to the lake, letting the wind off the water clear my head, reminding myself I was free. I started running again, the rhythm of my feet on the path, a way to reclaim my body, my strength. I'd pass couples holding hands, and instead of aching, I'd feel a quiet pride. I was enough on my own. Work became a place of growth. Rachel, my new boss, was tough but fair, her feedback sharp but never personal. I threw myself into projects, rediscovering the joy of creating campaigns that didn't carry Richard's shadow. My colleagues were a mix of young creatives and seasoned pros, and we'd grab drinks after work, laughing over shared stories. I didn't tell them about Pinnacle, but I didn't need to. Their acceptance was enough. I saw Ethan once, months later, at a coffee shop in Wicker Park. He looked tired, his charm faded, his eyes avoiding mine. I felt nothing, no anger, no longing, just a quiet certainty that it moved on. Claire sent a letter, apologizing, begging to talk. I burned it on my balcony, the ashes scattering over the lake. It wasn't hate, it was closure. Richard's name surfaced in the news now and then, each article a reminder of his fall. He'd moved to a smaller city, his career dead, his name a cautionary tale. Ellen thrived, starting a nonprofit with the settlement from their divorce. Sarah and Mia stayed in touch, our group chat, a quiet space for updates and support. Their gratitude was unspoken but felt, a bond forged in shared survival. Chicago secrets grew beyond my revenge. It became a platform for others, anonymous stories of betrayal, resilience, and triumph. I moderated it carefully, ensuring no one crossed legal lines, but the stories poured in. Cheated partners, toxic bosses, broken friendships. Each one was a reminder that I wasn't alone, that pain was universal, but so was strength. The blog wasn't about destruction, it was about giving voice to those who'd been silenced, about reclaiming power. My life isn't perfect. I still flinch when someone gets too close, still check my locks twice at night. But I'm building something new, something mine. I've started dating again cautiously, learning to open my heart without losing myself. I laugh more now, real laughs that come from deep inside, not the forced ones I used to fake. The lake outside my window is still there, but now it feels like a friend, reflecting my strength back to me. Betrayal showed me I'm not untouchable, but it also proved I'm unbreakable. Ethan, Claire, Richard, they tried to dim my light, but I burned brighter. Trust is a choice, one I make with care now, not because I'm afraid, but because I know my worth. Justice doesn't have to be loud. Sometimes it's the quiet, deliberate moves that hit hardest, and above all, your worth is yours. No one can take it unless you let them. I didn't let them, and I never will. The journey didn't end with revenge. It was just the beginning. I started writing again, not just for the blog, but for myself, journaling my thoughts, my fears, my victories. I'd sit on my balcony with a notebook, the lake stretching out before me, and write until my hand cramped. Some days I wrote about the pain, the way it felt to lose Ethan and Claire, the way Richard's presence had made me feel small. Other days I wrote about the strength I'd found, the way I'd stood up, fought back, and won. I reconnected with old hobbies, things I'd let slip during those dark months. I signed up for a pottery class, my hands shaping clay into bowls and vases, each one imperfect but mine. I'd spend weekends at the Art Institute, losing myself in paintings, finding solace in their colors and stories. I even started volunteering at a local women's shelter, inspired by Ellen's nonprofit. It wasn't about atonement, it was about giving back, about helping others find the strength I'd rediscovered. My friendships grew slowly, carefully. I met Lena at the pottery class, a graphic designer with a sharp wit and a kind heart. We'd grab coffee after class, swapping stories about our lives. She didn't know about Pinnacle or Ethan, but she didn't need to. Her presence was enough, a reminder that I could build new connections without fear. There was also Mark, a colleague at my new job who'd bring me coffee when I was buried in deadlines, his quiet humor a balm. We'd talk for hours, not about the past, but about the present, movies, music, the best taco spots in the city. I traveled too, taking weekend trips to places I'd always wanted to see. I went to New Orleans, wandering the French Quarter, the jazz and beignets filling me with a joy I hadn't felt in years. I hiked in Colorado, the mountains stretching out like a promise of something bigger. Each trip was a step toward reclaiming my life, a reminder that the world was vast, and I was part of it. The scars are still there, but they're fading. Some nights I'll dream of Ethan's apartment, the takeout bag hitting the floor, or Richard's office, his hand on mine. I wake up with my heart racing, but I've learned to breathe through it, to remind myself that those moments don't own me. Dr. Patel taught me to see them as chapters, not the whole story. The story is mine to write now, and I'm choosing one of strength, of hope, of a woman who fell but got back up. I think about justice a lot, about what it really means. For me, it wasn't about revenge for revenge's sake, it was about balance, about righting wrongs without losing myself. Ethan and Claire lost their facades. Richard lost his power, but I gained something more. Myself. I learned that trust isn't a weakness, it's a strength when you give it wisely. I learned that justice can be quiet, precise, and more powerful for it. And I learned that no matter what anyone does to you, your worth is untouchable. A fire that burns no matter how hard they try to snuff it out. But the healing was a marathon, not a sprint. I remember the first time I went back to that Italian restaurant. The one Ethan and I used to love. I sat alone at a small table, ordered a glass of wine, and stared at the empty chair across from me. For a moment, I could almost see him there. His grin, his hand reaching for mine. But then I took a sip, let the warmth of the wine ground me, and realized I didn't need him to fill that space. I was enough. I walked home under the city lights, my steps lighter, my heart less heavy. Therapy was hard but vital. Dr. Petal's questions cut deep. What did their betrayal take from you, Diana? I'd stumble over answers, talking about trust, love, safety. Over time, I saw it was more. They'd taken my sense of self, my belief that I was enough. Rebuilding that was slow, like piecing together a shattered mirror. Some sessions I'd leave feeling raw, but others I'd walk out with a spark of hope. A defiance I hadn't known I had. My new job was a sanctuary. Rachel wasn't just a boss. She was a mentor, pushing me to grow without ever making me feel small. I threw myself into projects, rediscovering the joy of creating campaigns that were mine, free of Richard's shadow. My colleagues became a kind of family, not forced like at Pinnacle, but real, built on shared laughs and late-night brainstorming. We'd hit a dive bar after work, swapping stories about bad dates or crazy clients, and I'd laugh until my sides hurt, realizing I hadn't laughed like that in months. Running became my ritual, the lakefront path my sanctuary. The wind in my hair, the city stretching out before me, each step a reclaiming of my body, my strength, my city. It passed joggers, dog walkers, couples holding hands, and instead of the ache I used to feel, I'd feel pride. I didn't need someone else to make me whole. I was enough, and every step proved it. I saw Ethan once months later at a coffee shop in Wicker Park. He looked worn, his charm dulled, his eyes avoiding mine. I felt nothing, no anger, no longing, just a calm certainty that it moved on. Claire sent a letter handwritten, full of apologies and pleas to talk. I read it once, then burned it on my balcony, watching the ashes drift over the lake. It wasn't hate, it was closure, a choice to put myself first. Richard's name popped up in the news occasionally, each article a reminder of his fall. He'd moved to a small town, his career over, his name a warning. Ellen was thriving, her nonprofit making headlines for its work with women in crisis. Sarah and Mia stayed in touch, our group chat, a quiet space for updates and support. Their gratitude was unspoken but felt, a bond forged in survival. Chicago Secrets grew beyond my revenge. It became a platform for others, stories of betrayal, resilience, and triumph. I moderated it carefully, ensuring no one crossed legal lines, but the stories poured in. Cheated partners, toxic bosses, broken friendships. Each one reminded me I wasn't alone, that pain was universal, but so was strength. The blog wasn't about destruction, it was about giving voice to the silenced, about reclaiming power. My life isn't perfect. I still flinch when someone gets too close, still check my locks twice at night. But I'm building something real, something mine. I've started dating again, cautiously, learning to open my heart without losing myself. I laugh more now, real laughs from deep inside, not the forced ones I used to fake. The lake outside my window is still there, but now it feels like a friend, reflecting my strength back to me. Betrayal showed me I'm not untouchable, but it also proved I'm unbreakable. Ethan, Claire, Richard, they tried to dim my light, but I burned brighter. Trust is a choice, one I make with care now, not because I'm afraid, but because I know my worth. Justice doesn't have to be loud. Sometimes it's the quiet, deliberate moves that hit hardest, and above all, your worth is yours. No one can take it unless you let them. I didn't let them, and I never will. The healing was a journey, not a finish line. I kept writing, not just for the blog but for myself, journaling on my balcony as the lake shimmered below. Some days I wrote about the pain, Ethan's betrayal, Claire's silence, Richard's predatory gaze. Others I wrote about the victories, the moment I hit send on the dossier, the night the gala turned to chaos, the first time I laughed without forcing it. He'd tried to start over in some small town, but his reputation followed him, a shadow he couldn't shake. Ellen's nonprofit grew, her work a beacon for women like me, like Sarah, like Mia. We stayed connected. Our group chat a lifeline of small updates. Sarah's new job, Mia and engagement, my latest pottery project. We didn't talk about Richard often, but when we did, it was with a quiet pride. We'd brought him down together. Chicago Secrets became more than a blog. It was a movement. Stories poured in from strangers, each one a thread in a tapestry of resilience. A woman whose husband had drained their savings, a man whose boss had stolen his work, a friend betrayed by someone they'd trusted. I read every submission, choosing which to share. Careful to keep it legal but raw, the blog gave people a voice, a way to reclaim their power without violence or chaos. It was my way of turning my pain into something bigger, something that helped others heal. My life isn't flawless. There are still moments when fear creeps in, when a stranger's touch or a locked door triggers a memory. But I'm building something real, something mine. I've started dating again, taking it slow, learning to trust without losing myself. I laugh more now, the kind of laugh that bubbles up from deep inside, not the hollow one I used to fake. The lake outside my window is still there, its surface catching the city's glow, but now it feels like a mirror reflecting my strength back to me. Betrayal taught me I'm not invincible, but it also showed me I'm unbreakable. Ethan, Claire, Richard, they tried to dim my light, but I burned brighter. Trust is a choice, one I make carefully now, not out of fear, but because I know my worth. Justice doesn't need to be loud, it's often the quiet, deliberate moves that hit hardest. And above all, your worth is yours. No one can take it unless you let them. I didn't let them, and I never will. The healing is ongoing, a path I walk every day. I keep writing, filling notebooks with my thoughts, my dreams, my victories. ID, to be actories. Sit on my balcony, the lake shimmering below, and let the words flow, sometimes about the pain, sometimes about the joy. Pottery class is a constant. My hands finding peace in the clay, shaping it into something new. The Art Institute is my weekend escape, its galleries a reminder that beauty endures even after pain. Volunteering at the shelter is my way of giving back, of seeing my strength reflected in the women I meet. My friendships are a lifeline, built on trust. I've learned to give slowly. Lena and I have become close. Our coffee dates a ritual of laughter and honesty. Mark is a steady presence, his humor a light in my days. We've started a tradition of Taco Tuesdays, hitting up new spots in the city, rating them on a scale of 1 to 10. It's simple, but mine. A reminder that joy doesn't need to be complicated. I've kept traveling, chasing new experiences. I went to Savannah, its moss-draped oaks and historic charm a balm for my soul. I visited Seattle, the Puget Sound stretching out like a promise of calm. Each trip is a piece of myself reclaimed, a reminder that the world is wide, and I belong in it. The scars are there, but they're softening. I still have nightmares, Ethan's apartment, Richard's office, but they're less frequent, less sharp. I wake, breathe, and remind myself I'm free. Dr. Patel calls these moments chapters, not the story. My story is one of resilience, of a woman who fell but rose stronger, who turned pain into power. Justice, to me, was about restoring balance. Ethan and Claire lost their masks, Richard lost his power. But I found myself. Trust is a strength, not a weakness, when given wisely. Justice can be silent, precise, and devastating. And your worth, it's yours, a fire no one can extinguish. I held on to mine, and I always will. I stood on my balcony, the city's lights sprawling below like a constellation of second chances. The Golden Gate Bridge, a faint outline in the distance, its red towers piercing the night. The fog had lifted, the air crisp, the hum of the city a song of possibility. I'd lost so much love, friendship, my faith in fairness. The future I'd built in my mind. Lucas and Mia had taken my trust, my heart, the dreams we'd woven together. Victor had taken my dignity, my sense of safety, and the one place I'd felt competent, in control. But I'd taken it back piece by piece, truth by truth. I'd turned their lies into a mirror, forcing them to face themselves, their choices laid bare. Justice wasn't about destruction. It was about truth, sharp and unyielding, a blade that cut without drawing blood. I'd exposed their lies, and in doing so, reclaimed my power, my worth. I thought about the girl. It'd been the one who trusted too easily, who believed in promises whispered under fairy lights, who thought love and loyalty were unshakable. She was gone, replaced by someone fiercer, someone who knew her worth, who'd walked through fire and emerged whole. The city hummed below, alive with possibility, its lights a map of new beginnings. I was Evelyn Carter, and I was no one's victim. Trust is fragile. A lesson carved into my bones, learned through tears and sleepless nights. But so are lies, and resilience is the fire that forges you anew. I'd walked through betrayal, through pain, and come out stronger, my heart bruised but beating, my future mine to shape. I turned from the balcony, the night air cool against my skin, and stepped back into my apartment. It wasn't home yet, but it would be. I'd make it mine, just as I'd made my justice, one careful, deliberate step at a time.